The Aggies avoided us again, which means Baylor's next victim is LSU. Let's get locked on Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube, Rogue Media Sports Network. Appreciate you making it your first listen today and every day. We're in the new studio for the first time, work in progress, but we've got a bowl game to react to. We're going to talk about this LSU team that Baylor's facing in the Texas Bowl, the team that once again probably should have faced Baylor in the Texas Bowl, but would rather do literally anything but that, and the reaction from the CFP committee and not putting in Alabama, putting in SMU instead, why that's actually good for football and good for all of us outside of the SEC. All that and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. So it took hours of deliberation, but we did get there, right? We knew Baylor was going to be in the Texas Bowl early Sunday afternoon, and it was nightfall in most of the country before we found out that they were playing LSU. And there's a reason for that, which is what we'll get into in the second segment, but it's 8-4 versus 8-4, two teams with a good-sized alumni base in Houston. It's going to be a packed house. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere. New Year's Eve afternoon, which kind of rocks. You know, you're not pushing it up against midnight on New Year's night. You could kind of still have the day after that. So anyway, that's a big fun part of it. But of course, the big headline, Dave Aranda going to square off against his old program, not his old boss, but his old program with the LSU Tigers, of course, winning a national championship as the Bayou Bengals DC before coming over to Baylor and, you know, doing some good things and now resurrecting his career and without ever getting fired, which is a tough thing to do. But I might have soft sold LSU a little bit on Friday, and that was by design, because let's be clear. I am pretty confident in Baylor against almost anyone at this point, the way the Bears are going. I'm not saying like they're going to go in to beat Oregon and Eugene or anything, but there's few teams in the country that you're going to stack up against Baylor after this 6-game winning streak. And I'm going to be like, they've got no shot. You know, it's just maybe it's because it's the first time we've been confident in a couple of years. Maybe that's it. But it's really one of those where I see LSU, a team that was ranked 10 out of the 12 weeks this year, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I kind of like their shot. They were not ranked any week of the 12. But I'm like, still, this Spavital offense and Sawyer Robertson and the way it's been clicking, the way they've kind of figured out more of an identity defensively. Not that it's been, earth-shatteringly good, but they've found themselves a little bit more defensively. I love getting the opportunity to face an SEC team in a quote-unquote meaningless bowl to get that ending to your season. And we kind of knew that the Texas Bowl was going to be a likely landing spot for Baylor. It was just going to be figuring out who they were going to play. And it looked at one point like they could even face Alabama in this game. Like, I think that was a projection a week or two ago. But after they just missed and probably the first team out of the playoff. I don't know if we know that for sure, but certainly that's what everyone thinks. I didn't think we were going to get them in the Texas Bowl, but boy, it wasn't that far off. And they're playing Michigan. Boy, that was a national semifinal last year. And now that's 9-3 Alabama against 7-5 Michigan. The crazy world of college football. But we're looking at LSU. And I was thinking about when that got announced, how much I don't like Brian Kelly. And I don't know that anyone likes Brian Kelly. I think that's fair, right? I'm going to get plenty of LSU fans watching this. I think it's a great fan base. I don't know if they love Brian Kelly, even when things are going well. It's just a very unlikable guy. Very unlikable. Totally out of touch. Massachusetts guy like myself who tries to be a Southerner, which I never tried to do, putting on the fake accent and everything. It's a weird thing with Brian Kelly. But this LSU team, again, ranked 10 out of the 12 weeks. They lose to USC on that opening weekend, that opening Monday or whatever it was, or Sunday of Labor Day weekend. And The bottom kind of falls out of USC, and by that I mean what, 7-5 USC. But like that was a bad game for them, and then they go on this stretch that they lose 3 in the middle of the SEC, and they win the final 2 to get into this game. Now, what is a fun point about this, and looking back on it in this season for the SEC, there's only one ranked win for LSU. That's it. So as this gauntlet of the SEC West, they only have one ranked win. It was a damn impressive win. They beat top 10 Ole Miss at home in overtime. That's a big one. They did beat South Carolina, which is now a ranked opponent. So I prefer to count that as a ranked win. The metrics don't, but that is a game that they won where, remember, that was a weird, South Carolina kind of pissed it away at the end. The Cox had it the whole game, and I mean, kind of keeping them at arm's length the whole game, and then LSU comes back. Now, if you watch this team throughout the year, you'd say, oh, it's just, it's a solid team. They're just kind of there. But you look at the metrics, and that would back it up. Like, you look at the stats in the SEC, they're like middle of the pack in everything. In fact, they're at the bottom of they're not near the top of anything. Their best, I think, is 5th in any of those major categories. And they're actually right at the bottom of run offense in the SEC, which was Oklahoma's mantle for weeks and weeks and weeks, probably until they played Alabama. And now LSU is at the bottom of that pile. They cannot run the ball, and they're not good against the run either. Those are two things where I think really goes in Baylor's favor. We've seen what the Bears can do against teams that don't stop the run. They crush them. They pick them apart. They kill them. We saw it with Tech, and we saw it with Oklahoma State. Like they crush those teams. TCU put up 37 on them. And when you put one arm behind the back of this LSU offense, that is going to play into Dave Aranda's hands. I know it's not been the stout, suffocating Dave Aranda defense that it was in 2021, but when you spot him half the game, essentially, of like, hey, they no matter what they're going to do, they're not going to run it. They're not going to be able to run it effectively. Then that's playing into the DC's hands quite a bit. So again, has it been a glimmering season for this Baylor defense? No, but they found themselves the last couple of weeks. You give a 3.5 weeks to a guy who could put up a defensive game plan, the likes of which most of the country has not ever seen. Like he could do it with the very best in the country. And I think that's advantage Baylor. Does LSU have the athletes? Probably, but Baylor's got some dudes, and the country's going to find out, which is what's really awesome about this. It's going to be nationally televised. The people are going to be building up to their New Year's Eve night stuff. They have not gone to their parties yet. They'll be watching football, and they will see Baylor take it to the SEC. So I love that. I really do. I want to go to this one comment here from Matthew. Call me a homer, but I think the SEC is much too scared to give Baylor a matchup with a team over 500. Baylor is a lot better than what they look based on their record, and the SEC doesn't want that smoke. Because I agree with that. And that's something we're going to talk about in the next segment here. But I agree in that Baylor is very deceptive. Okay, they're better than most 8-4 teams. In fact, I think Sicko's committee did an 8-4 bracket with Baylor as the 1 seed. Like this is an 8-4 team that feels like it should be 10-2 or 11-1. The way that they've figured it out mid-season. So I love that they're getting that opportunity against an SEC team. There was one that did not want to have that opportunity to play against Baylor, and I think we all know who it is, and we'll tell you who it is and why it is coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, a message from Omaha Steaks. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, You can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and so much more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at OMAHA steaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. So Bears get the invite to the Texas Bowl where they will take on LSU. And that's not too surprising. That's the projections we saw from most outlets the last couple of weeks. It was McMurphy was flipping between Alabama. I think he had Alabama one week, had LSU a couple more weeks. That's where Baylor ends up, taking on the Tigers in Houston. Notably, with that, and the way this all played out today or Sunday, the way it all played out really pointed to what we were talking about on the show last week. There was no way Texas A&M was going to play Baylor in the Texas Bowl. And it's not because of Baylor. It's not Baylor saying, "Hey, we're not playing A&M." It's A&M saying we're not facing that team. In fact, while A&M usually dodges one Texas team per year in the bowl games, they dodged 2 this year because all the other projections that didn't have, I think Bonaruga had ESPN had A&M in the Texas Bowl against Baylor. Everyone else had A&M playing in the Liberty Bowl, playing against another Big 12 team, but most of the projections had it as the Kansas State Wildcats. And suddenly, after hours of deliberation from the SEC trying to figure out who was going to go where, LSU ends up facing Baylor, and A&M magically ends up in Vegas and is facing USC. This is a classic money talk situation. Because even with the big pockets of the SEC, A&M has some of the biggest pockets, right? Because they would initially get the invite to the Texas Bowl. Oh, no, thank you. Baylor's there. We'll do what we usually do. We'll duck that Texas team and play in the Liberty Bowl. Ooh, actually, Texas Tech is in the Liberty Bowl. We can't face them either. That's on the no-fly list. We've got to go out to Vegas and play a lackluster USC team that no one will remember in 30 years was a lackluster USC team. We'll just have a bowl win over USC. And if we don't, nobody in 2 years is going to remember that it was a lackluster USC team. So it'll go down in the record books as a loss to USC. And there's no shame in that. We're not going to find USC alumni in the grocery store that we go to. They're not going to be in our office that our alumni work at. Sorry, our ex-students work at. They're not going to be anywhere in our lives the way Baylor and Tech will be in every corner of our lives if they beat us. It's just so classic, scared, timid, petrified A&M. It's just right out of Central Casting. And I got to give some good credit here to Sam Bradshaw from Sikkim 365. He actually laid it all out here. Since A&M moved to the SEC, they have avoided a Texas Bowl invite, which almost always comes with, of course, a Texas team from the Big 12. They have avoided it 8 times. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 21, 23, and now 24. They will do anything to avoid playing Texas teams. Like, do you have any shame, A&M? Like, do you have any pride, man? Like, how about just having some balls and playing one of these teams? But no, because they avoided UT for over a decade, even though it was one of the best, if not the best rivalry in all of college football. And they finally get it back because UT goes to the SEC and bam, they're gone. They're done. They lose to them year 1. Like, it's just so dumb, man. It is so dumb. And it's just classic A&M. Like, we knew this was going to happen. And their soft landing spot is always the Liberty Bowl. And they couldn't even avoid that one either because Tech is there. And God forbid they lose to Tech. right? Tech or Baylor? No way. We'll take USC and whatever comes with it. Whatever comes with it. Matthew makes another good point. Ruben Owens should be back for that game. Like that's what the chatter is with A&M. So if you're getting like your best recruit ever back, why don't you just play Baylor? But they're scared. They're so scared to lose to Baylor. They've already lost to UT this year, and they're not going to live that down for a whole year. But it's just so funny, man. It's just so funny. Meanwhile, LSU's like, sure, we're a real football program. We'll go play Baylor. Who cares? Yeah, it's a great place for us to go with our alumni base. A&M, it's right in your backyard, and you're still not going to do it. Still not going to do it because, we're in the big bad SEC. And I've had A&M fans in the comments all week talking from that last video, talking about how they're not scared to play Baylor. Effing prove it, man. Just prove it. You might not be afraid to, but your administration is. And that's why it took hours for us to figure out who Baylor was going to play in this game. It's just classic scared Aggies, but they'll say, we're in the SEC. We play well, yada, yada, Casey Smith. And yet they will avoid facing a Texas team at every single turn. You cowards. You absolute cowards. And now you can't even duck UT anymore. You could duck all the rest of us. One of these years, the SEC is going to have to say, you know what? No, this is where you're slotted here. This is where you finished, and it's in Texas. You're going to play the Texas Bowl because this today was annoying. On Sunday, where we just had to wait for 2 hours to figure out who was going to play who because A&M did not want to do this. Like your only excuse is gone, Aggies, okay? Because UT is there too. You can't just hold over every Texas school that you play in the SEC and we don't, and therefore you're better. You can't do that anymore. You've lost that excuse. So why don't, if you actually have the best program in Texas, where you're going to bring in the best recruiting class every year, you're going to buy the best talent this state has to offer. If you're going to do that, then why don't you prove you can actually beat one of these teams? Because right now you are sledding uphill. We already know you can't beat all these teams. You didn't beat UT. And I would be really worried if I were an Aggie, about being an Aggie, but I would be really, really worried about facing Baylor. And I honestly wouldn't love my chances against Tech either. And it is just wrapped up in this loser mentality that A&M has had for a long time and has really come up big time since the Jimbo Fisher era started and is now ushered into the Mike Elko era as well. They're lazy. They have more opt-outs than anybody. It's a bad culture there. They were the first ones that were just buying all these recruits, couldn't do anything with them. 7-5, 8-4 in a good year. And they're avoiding facing all the teams from their state because they're so worried that if they play Tech or Baylor, they're going to lose those bragging rights and everyone's going to see them as frauds, including their recruits and the people that give money to them. Absolute cowards. And again, am I surprised? No, I'm not surprised by this, but it just rings true all the time. All the time. I just, they're so bad. Tell your Aggie friend a compliment, man. Okay, because they are so self-conscious, they can't even pick the right bowl game. So, Bear the Truth asks, are there any Baylor players expected to not play in the bowl game? Not that I've heard so far. And Baylor's got a great position in terms of how many guys they're bringing back. And a lot of guys who are going to be NFL prospects next year, not this year. So that's a really good thing. I don't think they will. I mean, every team has an opt-out or two, right? At least. So they probably will have something. And DeQuan Finn will technically be an opt-out because he's looking to get another year of medical redshirt. But nope, they're probably not going to have opt-outs, not many. And that's another thing that A&M just couldn't afford to deal with. So anyway, let me know what you think about the Aggies. Drop that down in the comments below. I know there are plenty of Aggies watching either live or after the fact. So tell me why you're not afraid to face Baylor or Tech. And that just so happens that you're playing USC in Vegas because that's a very natural bowl for A&M to play in. This is just classic. Oh, we're going to be at the table with the big boys. We play USC in our bowl games, not the Rose Bowl. No, the Vegas Bowl when USC is spiraling. That is so classic A&M. Anyway, there was obviously all kinds of controversy with the college football playoff selection on Sunday. And there's something that the committee got very right and that ESPN is very mad about, and why this is good for everyone outside the SEC, including and especially the Big 12. That's coming up next on Locked On Baylor. But first, let's tell you about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you're going to get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. We got a lot of bowl games coming like thick and fast at us, and you guys got to make this interesting. That's at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Baylor just missed the college football playoff this year. If the season had started 3 weeks later, they would have had a real shot. But alas, it didn't happen. Baylor did not make the CFP. I know people were glued to their TVs Sunday morning. I was to watch this all unfold. And the committee in the last selection got it right. They got it right. SMU gets into the playoff over Alabama. Did any of us think we would be saying that coming into this season? No, but the committee got it right. And there are Bama fans absolutely losing their minds on social media if they weren't already gone. Are they poisoning trees yet? I don't know, but I'm sure that is the next step. Alabama, a 3-loss team. SMU, a 2-loss team. And they're going to be saying, well, they haven't played anybody. They haven't played anybody. And that's what ESPN was saying too. They're only looking at strength of schedule. And so Alabama's response to this, because SMU had a worse strength of schedule, Alabama's response is, why do we go and play these good non-conference teams then? When their actual question should be, why don't we just win games? Because you can talk about strength of schedule all day long, but better records are always going to be better for Power 4 teams. Like SMU's playing in the ACC too. It's not like they're playing in the SWAC. Okay, they're not. They're playing in the ACC, and like at some point, strength of schedule is great, but at some point, wins have to matter as well. And the fact that Alabama has lost the plot on that is stunning. To me, stunning, because all I hear about throughout this whole ESPN reveal is that here's where the losses are, right? Here are the quality losses that each of these teams have, and this is why they should be in, because they have quality losses, rather than who have these teams beaten, right? Or just how many have they won? How many teams have they beaten? I thought this was a classic Joey Galloway, who's the biggest empty head on that set of empty heads. He's talking about Penn State. This is exactly what's wrong with the college football playoff right here. He goes, Penn State, the wins are not great, but they did play Ohio State and Oregon. Congrats. They're in the same conference as Ohio State and Oregon. That is not a participation trophy. And look, Penn State was always going to get in, but this is what blows my mind. They're like, they didn't beat anybody good the whole year. Really? They didn't beat anybody. And they're like, yeah, but they're in the same conference as these teams. Who gives a shit? Like, who cares? Like, are we going to get Vandy in? They actually beat somebody good. They beat Alabama, and they're in the same conference as Alabama and Tennessee and Ole Miss and whomever. Georgia. But that's not what this is about. You're supposed to win games. And okay, like it's all about quality losses, the whole show. until we get to the Alabama SMU debate. Then it becomes, well, look at the wins that Alabama has. Because if we focus on the losses again, which is what we've done with every other team, then that does not play into Alabama's hands. Because if we go over the losses, then we're looking at SMU, 2 losses. One of those teams is in the playoffs, or it was by a combined 6 points. And the other team started out 9-0 in a major conference in BYU. Because if we look at Alabama's losses, then we see that they've got 2 losses to 6-6 teams. So it's all about the losses until we're talking about an SEC team, then or until we're talking about Alabama in particular, who did not have as good a season as SMU did. Then it's not about the losses. Then it's about the wins. Then it's about who did you play. This whole thing is effed up, man. The whole thing. You thought it was going to be easier when we got to 12? No, because now they're going to be lobbying for 16 because plucky little Alabama did not get their shot at the college football playoff. Win more games. Baylor sitting here at 8-4. They've won 6 straight games. No one's complaining about them missing the playoff because they shouldn't have been in the playoff. Nobody's going to complain about Iowa State missing the playoff because they shouldn't have been in the playoff. And I don't want to hear about the plight of this team that is sitting and watching the conference championship games when another one is 11-2 and was playing in one. I don't want to hear it. Alabama fans, you've lost your minds. You've absolutely lost it. You don't just throw on a blank crimson uniform and a helmet with a number on the side and get into the college football playoff. That's not how this works. Nobody cares who your old coaches were, or we shouldn't care who your old coaches were, and that you've got an awesome 17-year-old on the team. That doesn't matter. SMU won more. SMU had a better season. They deserved to be in the playoff. Alabama did not. They did not. And it's just crazy. Like I said this from the beginning. When we moved to a 12-team playoff, that was not going to automatically afford opportunities to schools like SMU, who has now moved into a major conference, Tulane or Army, or in past years, Liberty and Coastal Carolina. No, it just affords more opportunities to the 3rd and 4th and 5th place teams in the Big Ten, in the SEC. And this time it finally worked right. Alabama did not get in. And that's how it is supposed to be with this resume that we're looking at right now. So yes, Alabama, if you want to keep crying and saying, "Oh, we're never going to schedule anyone tough non-conference again." Okay, then maybe you just refresh this year's schedule when you played Mercer, Western Kentucky, South Florida, and a 5-7 Wisconsin team. Go ahead, run it back. You've already done that. You already hacked that code. You already don't play a good non-conference schedule. It's what the rest of us have to worry about because the NCAA thought it would be a great idea, and the member institutions and all those people with the CFP thought it would be a great idea to put all the good teams in 2 conferences and then bitch about how they don't have good non-conference schedules. It's BS, man. And it's going to be up to us in the Big 12 to actually schedule tough non-conference. You know, Baylor played a team that was picked to win this conference in the quote-unquote non-conference schedule. Next year, they'll be playing Auburn. Okay? Like, that's what you can do. Even LSU, hey, I'll give LSU some credit. They went and played USC. A USC team that didn't end up being good, but they were a top 25 team to open the season. So don't give me that, Alabama. Don't give me that when you're facing Mercer and USF. That's you. I mean, you're literally losing the plot here. The committee got it right. They got it right. SMU had a better season. They deserve to be in over Alabama. Win more games. I don't give an F who you lost to. Show me some more wins than the other team. And if we do give an F about who you lost to, SMU's losses are better. They have less, and they were by less. Stop losing to 6-6 teams. It's not that difficult. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Be sure to leave a comment on what you thought the committee got right, what they got wrong. Was Penn State just overrated the whole year? I'm ready to hear that argument out. They've got a home game in the college football playoff. Was there anything that jumped off their resume about you to you that said, hey, they should be a home team in the college football playoff? Maybe just Joey Galloway, because he likes that they participated in a game against Oregon and Ohio State. Congrats. Way to go, Nittany Lions. That team used to play for championships. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. If you like the video, like the video. It really helps. Most of you who are watching and listening still aren't subscribed. That helps me out big time. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We're going to be going over some of the other storylines around the Big 12, what this means for the conference and bowl season as the week goes on. And of course, for the next couple of weeks, we will be getting you ready for the LSU Tigers in the Texas Bowl as much as we possibly can. We will see you tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on when you're listening to this or watching this, on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.